member of the European Parliament. He's the one who did really yeoman service on 9/11 Truth. He was the only one in the European Parliament who did this with any thoroughness. And one of the things Giulietto Chiesa pointed out that is stuck in my mind is that people simply don't know what NATO is. They've never heard of it. So the younger generation, even before you get to what to do, you got to somehow make this point that there's this oppressive international octopus which interferes in countries.
Yeah. His first aim is information. This is a clue for doing movements and organizations.
Okay. Pino, thank you for being with us. We'll have you back soon again to talk about precisely more information as you develop it, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Pino Cabras in Sardinia. Lucky him. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now, we went through the cratering of Ben Carson. We'll get back to him in a minute because he does have policies, and man, they are insane. But now we have Bernie Sanders, our wonderful mushhead hero, who not doing so well, right? Bernie did yeoman service when he ran interference for Hillary, right? He was that blocking back who prevented Hillary from getting gang tackled in the Democratic debate. They were all ready to go to town on the emails and her dishonesty, her surreptitious nature, all this stuff. But Bernie stepped in and said, I don't want to hear about your damn emails. And that, of course, saved the day for Hillary. So, as a result of that, there are some who would think that the Democratic nomination is practically wrapped up. Reality, however, always richer than these simple formulations. So what we now see is that Bernie, after having pontificated for months and years now, that he would not do negative campaigning. Oh, my God, because we know that the fussy independents and the petty bourgeois good government types don't like polemics of any kind. Right? All kinds of, there are even age groups that don't like polemics, like some of the younger ones. Bernie had pledged that he wouldn't go negative, but now Bernie is going negative. Bernie is talking about Hillary Clinton's emails. He's going negative. Now, the thing is that he doesn't go negative, really. He only does it as a kind of a half-hearted thing to kind of keep people on board. Reminds me a little bit of Bill Bradley back in 2000, right? Wouldn't fight. Bernie, of course, will not fight. So, but what he does do is to say, I'm covering the issue, right? This is CYA for Bernie. He says, I'm talking about our emails. Now, it's not in his television ads, his radio ads. He doesn't have all that. He doesn't go through the mantra of all the things that Hillary has done. Doesn't do any of that. So we regard this as yet another piece of nonsense. Now, one of the things Pino Cabras was telling me in the break was that in Cagliari, it's written Cagliari, Cagliari, Sardinia, the capital of Sardinia, there was a shipment of ordnance, right, of bombs that were sent by NATO to Saudi Arabia to start bombing Yemen. And as in this case, as in all others, we say to Bernie Sanders, where's the condemnation? Where's the indignation? Where's your pledge that you won't do it? Where's your attempt to shut this down? We also had one of the Saudi political prisoners this past week received the Sakharov Prize of the European Parliament. That means this guy is really important on the international stage. Bernie, those are your friends, right? The guy who made the award was Manfred Schulz, I think his name is, the German Social Democrat, who's the chairman, the speaker, in effect, of the European Parliament, right? Bernie, how come you don't do any of that? Why do you still praise Saudi Arabia? So all of that going on. So that's Bernie. We also have this funny tape, I guess, with Sign of the Times. We have a bunch of kids, right? Latino kids who come out and inveigh in, what can we say, obscene language against Donald Trump. A bunch of kids cursing at Trump because of his racism. Well, I guess he's been asking for it. Now, let's talk about Trump and Carson, right? Since this is the issue, at least we better talk about Carson while he's still there, because I have a feeling that he's going to be cratering, as we've said. Paul Ryan was sold to the American people by the corrupt, treacherous media as a moderate. Remember a couple of weeks ago? Oh, there's that group, the Freedom Caucus of mean old Tea Party reactionaries, conservatives, as they would say. But then there's the wonderful moderate Paul Ryan. So let's all get behind the wonderful moderate Paul Ryan. Well, as I tried to point out during this process, Paul Ryan is not a moderate. Paul Ryan is a reactionary, now with more and more elements of fascism in his activities, right? And this is the biggest crime of the U.S. media, at least on the domestic front, is not alerting people to the fact that the Republican Party has now got two factions, reactionaries and fascists. Forget about, moderates and extreme conservatives. No, reactionaries and fascists. So last week, earlier this week, Ryan kicked off his speakership by passing a highway bill. Now, highway bills are supposed to go on for 6 years. This one goes on for 3. Highway bills are supposed to provide $300 billion over 6 years. That's really meager, but I suppose better than nothing. In this case, the transportation infrastructure highway bill is 3 years and $150 billion, and it has no funding. It has no funding. It's just an authorization bill that it can't be put into action under the existing budget rules. So this is duplicitous. So a cheap trick by Ryan kicks it off. Now, the other thing is the Washington Post highlighted here on I guess it was Thursday that we now have the clash in the GOP, says the Washington Post of Thursday, November 5th. A divide over benefits. Medicare splits Ryan and Trump. Yeah. So Ryan, the great John Birch Society fanatic from deeply reactionary Wisconsin, says we're going to have to attack the entitlements. We're going to attack Social Security. We're going to attack Medicare and Medicaid. So he wants to gouge entitlements. Now, I must say, this is genocide against the American people. If you do this, right, we have an exhausted and depleted population. If you try gouging them more, the morbidity and mortality results will become quickly apparent. So this is the reality. Now, on the other side, though, we have Trump. Here, let's see what Trump says. Trump gets into a fight with Ben Carson. So Carson says, we got to get rid of it. The quote from Trump is, Ben wants to get rid of Medicare. You can't get rid of Medicare. It would be a horrible thing to get rid of. It actually works. You get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse, it works. Ben wants to get rid of Medicare. You can't do it. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. This is a dog and pony show, in case you haven't guessed. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now, Carson, as we said, is the guy who wants to attack your lifeline. In other words, your health care and your pension. He wants to gouge those. Now, when the Republicans have to talk about health care, they fall back on a series of cheap, threadbare subterfuges, right? Cheap tricks that have been around for decades. Some of these go back to, in the case of Medicare, they go back to the 1960s. In other words, the Republican, the Goldwater Republican answer to Medicare, or into the 1970s. What they all talk about is this shop-worn piece of nonsense, the health savings account. So The health savings account, a high deductible insurance plan where you put in, as much money as you can. But the problem that it is that the risk is all on you. And if the money runs out, this pittance, this wretched pittance that you've been able to put into the health savings account, then you are out of luck. You will be foreclosed on. You will go into bankruptcy. You will be finished in all of these ways. Now they say, oh, you're incentivized to stay well. You're incentivized not to go for needless tests. And of course, what they want to do is gouge you because they don't have the guts to tax Wall Street, right? The answer to all of these things in terms of the federal budget, and they're going to be talking about this, the 1% Wall Street sales tax. 1% on every trade, every act of buying and selling, derivatives above all, stocks, bonds, probably not federal bonds, but corporate bonds, to be sure, maybe not state bonds, but everything else, every other kind of transaction, right? Those all EDFs, right? Whatever it is. So that's the answer to it. So because these people, as servants and stooges of Wall Street, they want to say, let's have the wonders of a health savings account. Now, the young person might say, yeah, I'm invincible. I'm going to live forever. The person who's blinded by greed might say, yeah, I'm going to hoard that money and then I'll get to spend it at the end of the day. The idea then is you're not going to get preventive care, right? The deductibles are high. You can't deal with the out of pocket if you're going to get preventive care, the kind of timely stuff. And there's also a track record of health savings accounts, right? Under health savings accounts, individuals are more likely to avoid, skip, or delay health care because of the cost. HSA, health savings accounts, as experiments have failed in other countries. They caused financial hardship in Singapore. They undermined the cost effectiveness of healthcare system there. In South Africa, the 10 years of health savings accounts show that this consumer driven, it's actually driven by necessity. The cost of specialty care has increased by 43%. The cost of hospital care is up by 65%. Uninsured rates have gone up dramatically, right? Now, the other side of it is the people who are going to make money off this. It's like privatizing Social Security. If you privatize Social Security, then the people who make out like bandits are the bandits. That is to say, Wall Street, the stockbrokers, because they're going to get the commissions on all these trades. But don't look now. It's not just on the Social Security side. If you start tampering with Medicare, right, putting in these vouchers and the rest of this stuff, you will enrich the financial services industry, says the New York Times. Banks, credit unions, and money management firms are now quietly positioning themselves to become central players in the business of healthcare by offering health savings accounts, tapping into the $75 billion of new money that will be at stake if a lunatic like Ben Carson gets in. So, now, the other side of it is if Trump says that he will not tamper with Medicare, what is a Trump promise worth? And I say nothing. For example, you can't believe the Donald. He's been a Democrat. He's been a Republican. He's been an independent. He has bought and sold politicians of all stripes and colors. He has been pro-abortion, anti-abortion. He's been against the war on drugs, and he's been for the war on drugs. He wanted, at one point, he said, let's have an asset tax on not just income, but assets, 14.25% to pay off the national debt. Later, he wanted Bush tax cuts, right? Tax cuts for the rich. So he's for gun control, against gun control, for universal health care, then against it. Now it's mainly the repeal of Obamacare and a system based on competition. He wanted the privatization of Social Security. Now he's against it. He wanted Hillary Clinton and Jeb Bush to be great, and now he's against both of them. So this is ridiculous. Now, also, let's also remember presidents in general, the historical side. When Richard Nixon ran for president in 1968, he claimed to have a plan, secret plan in his